Hi, due to popular demand, I'm going to create a recording of how we did the transformation to calculate percent differences on problem 6, part 2 in homework 3. So you can use the data as it is for part 1 and basically create a pivot table like matrix in Power BI. But in order to get part 2, and there's other ways to do this, I'm going to show you how to just manipulate the data, transform the data to calculate the percent change in sales dollars and the other measures between 2024 and 2025. So that's the question we're trying to answer. So let's get started. First, I'm going to go get my data and import my Excel file. That's going to launch Power Query. I'm going to click on the worksheet when it comes up and then select Transform Data. Now, because part 1 uses the original table, I'm just going to highlight it and copy and paste it so I can make a copy of the table. And I'll call this percent difference. So now remember, we're doing percent difference from one year to the next, but if you look at our data, each row represents a year month, a value in a year month. So this is the total sales in January 2024. That's the total returns in dollars in January 2024, so on and so forth. So I have 24 rows because I have 2 years of data. Well, I want to collapse this. I want to collapse the months and sum up the values across months into years. Okay, and the way I do that is I go group by. I'm going to click advanced. My grouping variable is right here. I'm going to keep that on year. I want to group these data rows or these months by the year that they occurred in. And then I'm just down here, I get to create aggregated columns with this data. So I'm going to sum the sales dollars based on the question. Then I'm going to sum the returns dollars. I'm going to sum the sales quantity. I'm going to sum the returns quantity. And then here on the left, I'm going to give them the column name. So this is going to be total sales dollars, total returns dollars, total sales quantity, and total returns quantity. And you could have named them other things. It doesn't matter, just so you can keep track of them. Now watch, I've got 24 rows here. When I click OK, I end up with 2 because I grouped them by the 2 years. So you can go over here to your applied steps and you can flip back to the prior step and you can see kind of the change take place in action. Okay, but now we have the measures in the columns, and most tools don't let you create a calculated row. Like you might want to take 25 minus 24 and divide it by 25 and put a new row in here. Most tools only have calculated columns, so I need to transform, I need to transpose these years and those measures. So the first thing I do is these 4 measure rows are already highlighted. If they weren't, I just click on the first one, hold down Shift, and go over and click on the last one. And then I'm going to go transform and unpivot. And now just pay attention. I'll go back to the last step. See, it just took those column headers and it melted them down into the attribute column. And now there's 2 of each of those measures, because 1 for each year. But now I'd like to get year to go across the top. And so I'm going to click on year and I'm going to pivot the column. And this says, it looks like you want to use the values. It says name, so I'm calling them values in year to create new columns. In other words, I want to take the unique values in there, 2024, 2025, and create a new column for each of them. But tell me when I create those new columns, which of the remaining 2 columns you want me to use to populate the cells underneath those columns. And in this case, it's value. Okay, and I click OK. And there we go. So I could rename this attribute to be measure. And now I've got my totals, my total returns dollars for 2024 and 2025, my total returns quantity 2024, 2025. But I'd like to get the percent difference, and so I can just go add a column. I do custom column. I'm going to call it percent difference. And the way I get the percent difference from 2024 to 25 is I'm going to start with 2025. Get this right. 25 minus 24, close parentheses, and divide by the base, the original value, which is 24. I click OK. There you go. So now that looks like a percentage. And at this point, I could just use my data as it is. This essentially answers the question, but I'm going to load it back in to Power BI so that I can create kind of a table or a visual. So wait a few minutes for it to load. And you may have to go back and like watch this video and watch the steps. Definitely change those applied steps so that you can see the effect that it had, because there's actually performing the specific tasks, but then there's performing the conceptual tasks. What conceptually do I need to do with it? Okay, so I'm going to insert a table. There you go. And then I want to make sure I use my percent difference table over here. And I'm going to put the measures in one column. So I click on measure. It sticks them in the first column. And when I click on percent difference, it sticks them in the second. And there's really nothing aggregated there because there's only one value in each row. So that's how you do part 2 on question 6.